Good morning, good evening, and good day. Thank you so much for watching Attack Power Gaming. Today I have a special treat for you 10v10ers in a how to destroy super heavy tanks such as King Tigers, Elephants, and IS-2s. If you enjoy this content, please hit that like button and subscribe for more Steel Division 2 content. Let's dive right in. So first off, before everyone gets their hair all in a bunch, I spoke to Hobo Tango and I said, "Hey Hobo, I know you played UU at some point and crushed his King Tigers. Is it all right if I use your video to make a tutorial?" And he said, "Absolutely, Attack Power. I'd be happy to let you." So I have permission before everyone's like, "Attack Power, why don't you go do it yourself?" The fact is I don't run into a lot of King Tigers, and I do not have time to play like 15 games to try to get a 10v10 where I actually get a chance to kill a King Tiger and show you different strategies to do it. Hobo does an awesome job in this game killing UU's King Tigers here, so I decided this would be a much better example of showing you the different strategies you can use to kill super heavy tanks like this. So that's why I'm using Hobo's video here, and credit to him for an awesome game played and let me use this content. All right, so I want to start right here and go with the most basic way to counter a heavy tank. So the most basic way to go after these things, the most straightforward way to go after these super heavy tanks is to simply flank them. So we can see here that Hobo's already setting up for a really nice flank. He's got this Panther down here going up on the hill, and he's got some AT coming down to be able to shoot down this road. So what's going to happen is they'll start shooting down this road, the King Tiger will turn to shoot them here, and the Panther will have an opportunity to fire a side shot onto the side of this King Tiger and actually, hopefully, get a penetration. Now, that's one thing with some of these super heavy tanks, such as the King Tiger, is even their side armor is quite significant. So you really need to make sure you have at least some really powerful stuff to do this flanking maneuver, because a lot of times even their side armor is pretty significant. So you need something strong, like, one of the heavy tanks such as a Tiger, a Panther, at least a T-34-85, something in that caliber, Pack 40, to actually penetrate the side. His 45 mil here that he's using really can't actually penetrate the side armor of this, but the fact is it'll help distract it and draw its fire, and in other words, draw its front armor over to that position. So if we watch here for a minute, we'll actually see this King Tiger's coming down the road. This Panther's going to come up onto this hill. This guy's going to start firing. And the Panther's going to have an opportunity here to hit the side armor of this King Tiger. So we see this thing is shooting. The King Tiger sees it. It wants a piece. The Panther gets a lucky shot and gets a great critical. Track's broken, which means it's stuck there. And now all it can do is turn in place. So now this Panther can continue to fire. Now, of course, the King Tiger has turned, so its front armor is hopefully facing it. Oh, it's not even. See, it's facing the wrong way. Now it's finally turning. And that gives Hobo Tango a lot of chances to actually land some successful hits. So the next thing in terms of stopping these monstrosities is you can also just throw stuff at it. In other words, you can have so many things shooting at it that the suppression bar fills up and the tank is forced to fall back. And when the tank falls back, that presents a huge opportunity to get flanking shots and rear shots and things like that. So if you can't, straight up penetrate it, like with this Panther here, you can basically flood it with damage until it actually falls back and runs away, and then you get an opportunity to hopefully fire at its rear or its back. Another thing I would strongly suggest is trying to take out the eyes of these super heavy tanks. In other words, these things cannot see on their own. They're basically completely blind. So you want to actually take the time to target especially recon units that are around these things so that these stay blind and their effectiveness is cut significantly. It also gives you a better chance of actually taking them out at the end of the day because they can't see where you're coming from, and you'll get more side and rear shots. So make sure you take the time to target the recon units around the heavy armor to hopefully blind them. So what we see Hobo Tango doing here, because this Tiger's, kind of stuck and now it's aiming at this Panther and stuff, he's trying to drive this BA-10 as fast as he can, basically to literally just drive straight behind it and shoot it in the rear armor. That's his game plan here. It doesn't work out, but it's a great plan at the same time. So one thing I want to note here too, one of the most effective weapons against super heavy tanks is of course Infantry AT, because Infantry AT generally has much higher penetration values. One unit that actually still cannot penetrate a King Tiger at the front, or any of the super heavies really, is a bazooka. A bazooka only has 180 millimeters of pen, which is why his Razvedka shooting bazookas at the front armor of this King Tiger aren't penetrating. It's actually super awkward. You still have to hit from the sides. Now at Panzerschreck would be able to do it, or any of the units with like the hand grenade ATs. Those have like 300 millimeter of penetration, so those can pen, you know, super heavy tanks like this from the front. So you can see this bazooka bouncing off of this thing. See, only 180 millimeters of pen he sees here, and the bazooka's just not actually doing anything to that Tiger, which is kind of hilarious. You just kind of assume these things can kill everything all the time from every angle, but that's actually not the case. He is now doing... He had a secondary idea here, and this is also very effective. Air power can kill these heavy tanks as well. So if you don't have the ground forces to deal with this, your next option is to use artillery and airplane bombers to HE damage the tanks into death. Because remember, these tanks have 10 health, and you don't have to necessarily penetrate the armor to do damage to it. HE shells do small amounts of damage every time they land on or around the tanks. So if you just bomb it or artillery or mortar it over and over again, the heavy tank will die. It's a more gradual and, you know, patient process, and you also need the opponent to not be fully paying attention, because, you know, obviously you need those arty hits and those mortar hits to actually be hits. They have to land. And in terms of planes, they need to not have very much AA. If the opponent has a lot of AA, this strategy with airplanes is obviously really not effective. And of course, the number one easiest way to kill a heavy tank is to cluster bomb it or an AT rocket it 2 or 3 times. That's the easiest way. But most of the time, people are going to have some sort of anti-air around their super heavy so that you can't easily kill them like that. So that's why we're going over the more difficult ways to actually kill these things. And we can see here the Tiger tries to run away, so it's trying to fall back because of this, and now even the BA-10 shoots it from behind and kills it. So rear armor is where you need to be. So here we see Hobo Tango using that airplane idea to bomb that King Tiger. You can see here it does very little suppression, doesn't even really scratch the paint, but it is doing damage. You can't see it. It might only be 1 of the 10 health that thing has, but it's doing damage. And he continues to bomb this Tiger, building up a little bit more suppression each time. One thing you definitely don't want to do is imagine that something like a Panther is going to randomly pen this Königstiger from 2,000 meters away. You can see the bombs continue to fall. That one kind of missed, so it's not going to do as much damage. But you don't want to just like drive your Panther or something up to it. It's not the way to do it. So we can see here he's bombing the Recon because he wants to get rid of the eyes of this Königstiger. If he can basically remove the eyes, you can see random APCR shells and stuff on the flanks sides of the Tiger can kill it. So even a light AT like this has a chance of actually killing these things. Of course, now he's turned. That opportunity is now gone. One move I'd like to mention as well. It's kind of more of a cheese move, but it can work. If your opponent's Tiger doesn't have a lot of support, so it's kind of like out in the open by itself, doesn't have a lot of units around it, one thing you can attempt to do is try to literally like call in 2 or 3 Panzerschrecks or bazooka, you know, the 2-man teams that come in, the really fast transports, and literally just try to drive up to it as fast as you possibly can and unload right around the Tiger and kill it with the bazooka. It's not like the most reliable or effective way, but if your opponent's not paying attention or they haven't properly supported their super heavy tank, it can catch them out. And it can be really rewarding because you're spending like 40 to 60 points killing a 300 point super heavy tank. You know, if it works out, it's a high risk, high reward play. I wouldn't suggest all the time, especially if they've, you know, if it's just part of their battle line and they have tons of guys all around, it's never going to work. But if, you know, say they've pushed kind of forward, you know, they're using it as the spearhead, which they really shouldn't, but let's say they did, you know, in this game, there's that Tiger kind of up north here. There was one hanging out up north somewhere. Looks like he killed it. You know, that might be able to catch out one of those units. And basically, I don't want to say it's a free kill, but it's a step off of a free kill on a super heavy tank. Oh, it's right there. Yeah, it's right there next to his thing. So he could potentially like try to drive right here, like vroom, 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 and just bazooka it right there. And you can see here he's kind of doing that strategy a little bit, where he's just driving these infantry up, and now his opponent's being very aggressive with this King Tiger, and all he needs to do is get this Gavardi in range, and even landing the hit with the anti-AT grenade doesn't instantly kill this thing, so that's why you always have to be ready. Here's the other really straightforward way of killing these tanks, and that is using a rocket AT plane, but unfortunately it looks like he lost sight of it somehow. Remember, AT rocket planes need to have sight of their target the entire time. If they lose sight of their target, they will not shoot, and it's really frustrating, but that's the truth of it. Be careful. And now we can see Hobo finishing it off with those AT rockets. Okay. One of the most straightforward ways to do it, of course. So, yeah, those are some ideas on how to actually kill super heavy tanks if you don't have, you know, a Pack 43 or a Pack Krupp or your own super heavy tank. You know, that makes it a little bit more manageable to actually kill these things. Of course, that's the easiest way if you just have one of those divisions that have a super heavy AT gun, but obviously many divisions don't have that option, so you need to have some alternative way of killing those King Tiger tanks. And like I said, your best options are artillery, bombers, and then flanking, you know, flanking maneuvers. You still have to have something with at least a half decent amount of penetration, even with those flanking maneuvers. And then if you really need to, you can do those kind of more desperate maneuvers where you just charge in a couple infantry right up next to it. Make sure that their eyes are dead. That's a key thing to taking these things on. Try to blind them. Try to make it so they can't see, so they're now floundering. The final option is you don't have to kill them. If you can essentially negate their usefulness throughout the game, then they've basically wasted points on them. So if you can force them back, if you can make it too dangerous for your opponent to move these guys forward, then you've basically killed it. They just have 300 points sitting around doing nothing. So sometimes I think people get really hooked on trying to kill these super heavy tanks. If they're not doing anything, leave them alone. You don't have to kill them. You just need to find ways to maneuver around them and work around them that they're not affecting the game as much as the opponent needs them. They need to get 300 points of value out of that thing. If they're not getting that, then they wasted points and you should be pushing somewhere else. When people call in tanks like this, that means they're missing something somewhere else. This is a lot of point investment, especially if they call 2 in. You know, that's a lot of points. That means somewhere else they are weaker and you need to push really hard in those other places and negate the effectiveness of these super weapons. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like and subscribe button for more Steel Division 2 content. Have a fantastic day.